Hello everyone, it is TooAwesome here with another video. Now originally I planned to make this video a couple of weeks ago, but I had finals plus the release of the finale of The Mandalorian Season 2 all pushed back this video's release. So sorry about that. Also, this video will contain spoilers for The Great Pretender. If you want to see a non-spoiler video on the topic, go check out my Why You Should Watch The Great Pretender. But without further ado, let's review The Great Pretender Season 2. Right off the bat, the animation is as beautiful as ever. It's everything that I remembered from the vibrant sets of the first season and can be considered nothing less than art itself. And that animation was what originally drew me in the first time watching. Like a child, I was drawn to these vibrant and colorful worlds. Now, the story of the season can be called anything other than colorful. This season tackles way darker topics than the first season even tried to touch, and I'm not sure the show handled it. In the first season, while it did handle topics that you can consider heavy, like drugs and the loss that Abigail went through in her backstory, they don't really compare to the topic of child trafficking that this season tries to go over. And it's a very difficult thing to do. I mean, it's a very touchy subject, and you still have to give light to the struggles of the victims that they went through, while still not trying to glorify the act as well. It's very hard to manage, and I'm not sure they did it all that well. Like, they introduced it for a few scenes, but they almost downplayed it in a sense. It didn't really feel like these kids had been stripped from their families and homes, but more like they had to go to a summer camp that they didn't really want to go to. I feel like the show downplayed it in a sense, then moved on just as fast as the concept was introduced. Plus, I feel like having a show that is relatively fast-paced and focuses a lot on humor and the colorfulness of the cons isn't really suited to handle such a dark topic in the first place. I get that the topic was crucial for the con in the beginning, but I feel like with a little tweaking, the idea could have been replaced by another since it isn't really dwelled on all that much after the first half of the season. I mentioned before that this is a fast-paced show, and usually in shows with quick pacing, you want to go over and develop one idea before jumping to the next instead of bouncing around from topic to topic. But sadly, the latter is what happened this season. We go from the illusion of Luarant's past to Makato leaving and finding a job, to that job being a mafia group that sells children, to them setting up the con with Aby, to it being about Makato's past, then about a gang war between a mafia in China and one in Japan, and well, I think you get it by now. The story is convoluted, and while it does technically flow, I kind of miss how it was in the first season, where each case would focus on one person and one con, and the show also kind of stopped explaining how the cons were actually pulled off. Like, there would be a scene of someone getting stabbed or shot, and they would just be miraculously okay with little to no explanation, which was a real shame since the first season was so airtight and almost everything was explained. Also, the transformation that Makato goes through after killing his father and seeing his friends die doesn't really make sense for his character. Now yes, I understand that he was a shady person before, but never even close to this extent. I understand he believes he just killed his father, but you have to remember that Makato's character has a really strong moral compass for most of the time we have seen him. So from him being completely against what the mafia is doing to fulfilling a full 180 doesn't really make sense for his character. Although, I do think that when he killed his father, he was killing a sense of the hope for himself to be a good person. And when he realized that his father has been around all this time partaking in such shady business, maybe that hope died inside of him. Although, from what we've seen previously, that's kind of unlikely. And while the story bounced around, we did get to learn about the founding of this con artist group and how they all came together, which I thought was really cool. I also really liked the talk between Makato and his father. It seemed very real, especially putting into consideration all that happened previously. I also really like the locations. The cities seem very vibrant and the inside of the headquarters for both groups look really great. It is basically more of what I've come to expect from The Great Pretender, especially after Season 1's amazing locations. The plan for this case doesn't really make all that much sense to me. It is just too long and the story was too unpredictable that there would be no way to truly think up everything that could have happened. I want to draw back to the first three cases because all three of them, although sometimes far-fetched, made sense and had a pretty linear way of how things will be done. But for case 4, there are simply too many uncertainties that it seems pretty unbelievable that everything went according to plan. Although I really like the scenes between Makato and the old lady. It was actually really nice and almost makes you forget about all the atrocities she has committed. Almost. I really did start to feel for her though, when learning about her backstory and how her son left her all alone to run the business by herself, leaving her lonely was actually very sad. Then I had to remind myself about all the stuff she had done. But I do feel the struggle that Makato feels when having to decide between his friends or the woman who was basically a mother to him for months after he assumed he killed his father. Because to turn someone as evil as she was into someone we can sympathize with is no easy task. I definitely have to give credit where credit is due, although I got major deja vu with the scene of Makato serving her coffee in the house. Like, is it just me? Because I swear I've seen that scene before, or at least something very similar. But forgetting what she has done, when you boil her character down, I really feel bad for her. Because she seems like a very sweet person by the way she takes Makato in, and the loneliness she must have felt must have weighed heavily on her. Yet again though, she did allow some pretty messed up stuff to happen, so there is still that. But I need to talk about the finale of the plan, because what the heck did they just pull? The final plan makes no sense. There was no reason to include the drug lord from the first case. Seriously, the SWAT team they implemented seemed more than enough. Plus, he could just become a liability since he doesn't really have the same loyalty to them as the rest of the members. Now, if the cracks in the plan were not already showing, it's getting pretty outlandish when they get dropped off on an island and everything was apparently a set. Yes, I understand how they explained it, but seriously, how the hell did they even manage that? There's no possible way it makes sense, and it is starting to feel like a really crappy comedy cartoon. Like, this seems like the kind of gag that would show up on a throwaway show on Cartoon Network. Although I thought the action during the finale was really good. I actually believe that Makato had come off the hinges and sided with the woman instead of his friends. Plus, I would much rather watch them have to deal with Edamame's unraveling than somehow get out of the situation unscathed, saved by some crazy and phoned-in Deus Ex Machina. Although I did like the reference to the beginning of the show with the beginning scene of episode 9. It was a very nice reference and a callback to the original Help Me scene. Going back over the explanation scene, I liked how they did it, but still, it's far-fetched. At least they cleared up some of the confusion with it though. Although, that wow factor that I first felt when they would explain how they pulled off the cons is starting to wear off. It no longer feels like it was a skillfully crafted plan perfectly executed, but completing tasks on a whim and hoping that luck is on their side. Also, I understand how bringing all the people from the first season back was supposed to be a wow, everybody is here endgame moment, but it really doesn't make sense how they know each other or even all agreed to come back, so it kind of tarnished that wow moment as well. I still can't wrap my head around why they brought them back though. If I'm not mistaken, they came back because they were promised the money they got scammed, but in that case, why even bring them back? If you'll have to pay them that large sum of money, plus they weren't really all that important to the finale anyway, so it just seemed kind of forced. Also, maybe I'm really dumb and didn't pay attention, but the show was acting like we should know who that president was that last episode. Like, who was he? How was he connected to Luarant? If anyone knows, please tell me. I also like the fact that Dorothy was alive, but it is starting to feel like there are no risks or real stakes anymore. The show seems to be all about the reward now, while the risk is slowly dying and losing its influence on the characters and the viewer, because now I feel like there's little to no chance of any of the characters dying, while in the first season, I felt like anyone could go by making a single wrong move. There's likely to be a season 3, so hopefully they somehow bring back that tension and lean back into the high risk, high reward mentality of season 1. I did like the final scene of being able to see everyone just doing their thing after leaving the conning business. My favorite was Edamir's dad, or Oz. I really liked the conversation between him and the grave of his wife and family. It was very touching and just personally my favorite. Before reviewing this season, I had to come to terms about my emotions and how I feel about it. It was a very conflicting season, and while it had many things that I liked, it also fell short in many ways. Plus, I had finals, then the Mandalorian Season 2 finale came out, and I had to make a video on that, so this video just kept getting pushed back. So, I'm sorry. I also don't know how to feel about the cliffhanger after the credits. We learn that Dorothy is actually alive, but sometimes you just need to let characters die, because if you don't, you'll just be killing the stakes. I also seriously miss how in the first season every case was a different location and story. We got to see so many amazing locations that way and meet so many cool and interesting characters, but I do understand why the season was set up the way it was. I know I've critiqued and said many negative things about this season, but honestly, it's pretty decent. It's just not nearly as good as the first. So if the first season was a 9 or a 9.5 out of 10, then this season is a 7 at best. Season 2 of The Great Pretender gets a 7 out of 10. It had some really great moments, but the wacky plot and the lack of stakes dragged it down. Hopefully you all enjoyed the video. If you have any comments or differing opinions, please let me know down in the comment section down below. Also, look at this graph. Okay, but as always, stay awesome, TooAwesome. Thanks for watching.